Now I had to slow down the record rate. The record rate was doing up to 4K. Now the problem when you're doing that a too bigger thing, what happens is whenever you go to download it, and most people's devices they watch stuff on only does the 1080. So you know, most people's phones are, you know, HD and all that sort of stuff. So I learnt that don't record a too great a camera thing because it's just a waste of time. It's just something that you learn, okay? Right, I'm just checking my tape's all fine. Yep. Now let's get this deck glassed. So all I'm doing here, just spreading the resin out. I've got pins in this because the colon tends to slide round a little bit. So I'm just working around the pins first. And that just holds it in place. There we go. Now I can pull the pins out. And that just kept it in place till the resin sort of sits in the right spot. Now I'm not pushing any pressure on this, I'm just making sure it's spread out because you'll hear me say it a million times, let the resin do the work, and that's all I'm doing right now. I'm just spreading this out, and as I'm doing this, the resin will soak through and do the glassing for me. I know you see a lot of people glass and they're all over the place with their arms going everywhere, and you really don't have to make it hard. Now while I'm wetting this lap out, what's happening is all that resin is wetting out the actual board, going all the way through to the foam. Okay, so there is no mystical technique. It's like anything, you put water on something, it wets it. That's all you're doing. Now, I could be going backwards and forwards with the squeegee trying to make that wet out quicker, but you can't. It actually just soaks out on its own. And as you can see, as I've been doing this, the deck now is completely wet out. There are no dry fibres or anything. I just spread this bit of excess on, and this next part makes it real easy. I don't even push the resin into it. But here's my roller. Now I roll backwards and forwards, and in a matter of seconds, this gets every single bubble out, puts the cloth hard against the foam, and yeah, spot on. Just saves you that much time. If you're only doing one or two boards, it's probably not going to save you any time, but when we used to work in a glass shop and you'd have to glass, you know, 20 sides in a day, well, then it saves you a lot of time. And especially when you're doing 8 ounce or 10 ounce, it really gets your glassing a lot quicker. Okay, so that just does that. Then you just get your squeegee and you pull the resin out. So it's not a hard technique. Here we go. Just make sure this patch is not, because there's 3 layers here on the tail. I'm just making sure this patch is wet out beautifully. And then I'll go over the rest of the board. Go, do the rail. Right, so I've got that part done. Now just tuck the lap under. Whoop, pick the bucket. Sorry, I've got my acetone bucket sticking out there. Right, so I'm just putting that over here. Now I'm just getting the lap down. Alright, so I've got the lap down. The reason you rush to get to this point is if you have a gel now, the board's not fast, okay? So that's why you sort of rush always to get to that point. Now let's make sure it's all no bubbles. Nice and clean. That looks good. Just making sure this part of the swallowtail's pushed in nicely. Right. Right, so I've just got the lap down perfectly. There we go. So that's all glassed down nicely. Now I'll just put that extra bit of cloth on the gap in the swallowtail. You normally have a slight V gap. When you cut the cloth, you have a little V here. And what you do, you always have an extra piece of cloth. I'll just drop it in the resin there. Let that soak for a second and you put it in here. You never want to have that patch where there's no cloth on your lap. Looks shit house. Really, really amateur stuff when you do that. So you get this bit of glass. Get this here. And I'll whack this on here. So what I have now is a lap going all the way around my swallowtail, and you don't get that crack that a lot of people get when they don't have that extra bit of glass there. So that's the weakest spot on the swallowtail, where the V is sort of cut away. So I'll just clean my hands quickly and then I'll show you the cleanup. Right. Clean my squeegee. There we go. So that's cleaned up. Now, I'll just go around and check my lap. I'm just making sure there's no bubbles around here. You always get a couple on the edge of the swallowtail here. Right, so I'll just go around and do the lap. Now this is gelling as we speak. I think I'll push that tin in. I've only kicked it about 5 times. There you go, mate. You can go in there. Sorry, I kicked that about 5 times. So I'm just making sure the lap's perfect. Right, so now I'm just getting this lap down perfect. Beautiful. That's right. Right in the corner here. Beautiful. Spot on. There you go. Now I can just do a quick check over, and I'm just checking right on the edge of the lap. Sometimes when you do the way I did it, where I cut in, you get tiny little air bubbles. It's easy to do. You just rub a bit of resin on there. A bit of air comes out of the foam because I'm covering that with a pin line. Okay. A little bit here. You just rub a bit of resin there, fills it up. Doesn't take much to do. It all gets covered with a pin line. I like to always make sure there is no bubble there. I know a pin line covers it, but I prefer it to have resin in there than just cover it with a pin line and have an air cavity. Because most of the time, it can create a crack or something if there's air underneath it. So you just go around, make sure the resin's perfect. You've got about 3 or 4 minutes where you can still get resin into it. You've got a little window. You don't have to panic at the start because it always comes in just before it gels. Some colours do it more than others. It's just the way it is. As I say, you've got a couple of minutes where you've got a window where you can still push resin into it. I just like it to be perfect. That way you don't have any air pocket there. It only takes a sec to check it. Because it can tend to create an air hole when you put the filler coat on. Because air can leak out of it, so you just get rid of it. Just make sure it's not an issue. Looking good. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. There we go. As I say, once the pin line goes on, that cut edge gets hidden and just has a perfect line there. No air bubbles here on the corners. That looks good. Check the nose. Now I'm just going to do one quick run around with the squeegee. I don't probably have to, but I just always like to make sure this bottom edge is beautiful, because if you leave a drip there, it'll show up darker, like a dark spot. So you make sure you go over it. Not much comes off, maybe half a drop, but you just get it perfect, because just before it gels, it still can run down if there's a little bit. But I always, mainly on tints, you do this. You don't have to worry on clear because you can't see it. But you just, this bottom half of the rail from the apex down, you want to be exact. There we go. That's done. So you check this over. Yep. Beautiful. Spot on. Right. Bit of copper powder in the hands. There you go, so that looks good. I'll just turn the camera around. Not bad. So what that does is, that's all nice, and now you can't. Yeah, the colour looks good. There's the colour on the bottom. Yeah, not bad. So as I say, this will have a nice pin line on it, so you won't see any of that cut. Spot on. Okay, I'll be back.